There's an interesting article written by Daily News reporter Mike McClary, dated December 1988, entitled, "Those Gotti Boys Are a Gas." The story's in regard to Ernie Grillo and his crew of guys that were running around terrorizing Manhattan during the 1980s. Back then, Ernie was the son-in-law of the Gambino underboss Neil Della Croce, and it was through Della Croce that he became associated to the Gambino family. Following Della Croce's passing in December 1985, Ernie not only lost a father-in-law, but an important rabbi as well. At that time, as we know, John Gotti took over the family, and Ernie was put with several people, including Gene Gotti and Angelo Ruggiero. Ernie, who grew up on First Avenue in Manhattan, kept a small crew of guys around him, guys who viewed him as their leader, and would handle all his rackets and street action, which made him a good earner. It was estimated that the crew was raking in millions of dollars in gambling, loan sharking, and extortion, with extortion and strong-arming being their specialty. What Mike McClary did was to go interview people who were victims of the Grillo crew, like Sam, the owner of a gas station between East 61st and East 62nd Street in Manhattan. McClary spotted a newspaper on Sam's desk, ironically with a story about the Gambino family taking over his gas station. McClary stated that they turned Sam's station into a parking lot and that they stacked so many cars that it became impossible to even reach the gas pumps. I remember Ernie telling me that the owner of the gas station was out one night with his family, and around 2 o'clock in the morning, he decided to pass his gas station, which was lit up like a stadium with portable lights and filled with cars. They literally took the guy's gas station over and made it a valet. According to McClary's article, when the owner complained, they changed the locks on his doors. McClary posted a question to Sam. How did the Gambino guys treat you? As you'll see from Sam's responses, he's definitely someone who learned just who the guys were who took over his business. You got the wrong place. Ain't nobody here like that. But McClary pinned him down. But it says right here in the papers, they strong-armed their way in here. Sam had an answer prepared. They were complete gentlemen when they came in here. They never strong-armed nobody in here. You see, they came in here, parked their cars, and paid their bill. Perfect gentlemen. McClary then tried another technique, so they shouldn't have been indicted. Ernie and his crew were the state's first racketeering case against organized crime, called enterprise corruption, where prosecutors had to prove members of a criminal group collaborated in a pattern of criminal activity and that its members committed 3 or more felonies over a 10-year period. The owner, Sam, responded, "I don't know nothing from indictments." McClary wrote, Grillo, as it is with most city mobsters who like living, is said to work for John Gotti. The case of this gas house gang is special because no one has ever before associated Gotti with anything unleaded. Across the street from the mobile station sits a tiny candy store. Earlier this year, police say Grillo and his crew took over a room in the back of the place, where Gotti boys, they bragged. Let me quickly add, I know Ernie well, and I highly doubt he'd say those words. McClary went to the candy store and spoke to the store's owner, Sidolf Burr. Tell me about the Gotti boys. No fucking way, he responded. The indictment stated that Grillo had an office in the store, where he stored stolen goods and the body in the garage. McClary walked around and found shipping crates stacked to the ceiling. The boxes were all addressed to a Ruth Vintow. In the indictment, Grillo was charged with stealing lighting fixtures from Vintow. McClary went back to the gas station and spoke to a gas attendant. It says they killed the guy here. The attendant told him, don't speak English. McClary asked what language did he speak. The attendant told him, no language, just pump gas. According to McClary, detectives spotted Grillo in a 6-hour meeting with Gotti at the Ravenite Social Club, a club that once belonged to his father-in-law and doubled as his headquarters, and was now Gotti's. McClary wrote that the detectives believed Grillo had just been inducted into the family. I would say their assumption was inaccurate, because when Ernie was with me in prison, he was still a Gambino associate. The detectives had court-approved bugs placed in Grillo's house and his club, which picked him up saying, "We're like Little Murder Incorporated." For the record, the only murder he was ever charged with took place in February 1988. At the time, Grillo's right-hand man, Mikey Scarola, conducted business out of a Queens bar called the Cork and Bottle. He was loan sharking money to neighborhood drug dealers. And a local patron at the bar, Kevin Hogan, began making threats that he was going to take over their business. Scarola discussed the problem with Grillo, and on February 16, 1988, Hogan was seen walking into a building where the gas station was located with Grillo and Scarola. However, there was no sign of him when they walked back out. The indictment said Grillo began bragging about the murder, but detectives had no body. 2 months later, the police fished a floating body out of the East River with a bullet wound to one eye. It was Kevin Hogan. Detectives went to Grillo's club and tickled the wire. Any of you guys know Kevin Hogan? The indictment also spoke of a landlord at 1122 First Avenue who said that the Grillo crew was extorting him for apartments that they turned into casinos, and also told him that he had to pay them $50,000. Another landlord at 338 East 61st Street claimed that the Grillo crew demanded 4 apartments from her by threatening her and her children, apartments that they later rented to crew members for $100 a month. The one thing I could say about Ernie is he had a habitual tendency to take over businesses or spaces. Years ago, he had a kitchen and bathroom renovation company named Patriot, and I would meet him a lot at Casale Tile in Staten Island, which was owned by Gambino associate Benny Casale. On many occasions, Ernie would take cases of tile for his business and never pay for it. He also took me across the street where Benny Casale had another building that he used as a warehouse. During this time, Ernie was importing olive oil and canned tomatoes from Italy, and he had cases floor to ceiling in Benny's warehouse. There were more cases of olive oil and tomatoes than there were tile, which led me to tell him, "Ernie, you took over the guy's entire warehouse." He just looked at me and smiled. Gambino member Blaze Carozzo, who by no means is an Ernie Grillo fan, had told me one day, he's the type of guy, if you give him enough time, he'll take everything. If you haven't liked this video yet, please do, as it helps with YouTube's algorithm. And if you like to show appreciation for videos like this, or help me to continue making them, you can do that by donating with the Super Thanks icon down below, or through the PayPal Cash App links in the video's description. I'll end on this note. When I first began cooperating with the government, I was introduced to a new young agent. Her target was Ernie Grillo. She seemed determined, as well as someone who was on the ball. Another agent told me she's going to get him. This was a few years ago, either late 2018 or early 2019. Presently, we're in January 2025, and Ernie Grillo still hasn't been indicted.